I think probably your best arguments against the Calvinists, or probably the angle I think you should probably take with them, is that God is a loving being. I think most Calvinists agree with that, and like that idea seems like really inconsistent with like this deterministic thing, like, oh, God just picks whoever's going to heaven and whoever's going to hell. It's like really inconsistent with the idea of a loving person.
I agree, but they'll just say either A, I'm making an emotional argument and I'm wrong about my assessment of what love is, right? Or they themselves feel that way too, but who are we to argue with God? God will just, he'll clear it up in the end, or whatever. And everybody's deserving. I don't know if you heard that, Mike, but I was just talking with.
I heard him say the opposite. You're saying that you follow that position, right?
Yeah. Which part? The thing
that
I just
like
said?
Everybody's deserving. I heard him say everybody's not deserving.
Oh no, everybody's deserving of hell.
Of hell. Okay, sorry. I thought you meant of Jesus.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah, no. By most Christians' lights, no one is deserving necessarily of just given this gift of, salvation. But it might be insofar as God just decides that that's what He's giving you. Maybe you could say you deserve it in that way, but it isn't the case that you've merited it. I would agree with that. But he's saying that everybody is just deserving of hell right out the womb, and they necessarily are going to go there if God unilaterally, apart from anything that the man does or woman, whatever person does, apart from anything that they do, unless God saves them unilaterally, then they will go to hell. And if they do go to hell,
people can be saved.
Yeah. He believes people can be saved, but God is the one that does it entirely. It has nothing to do with your consent. You don't accept it or anything. There's no. And ultimately, that's you're not. Yeah.
Those are people with like the quote unquote mark. Isn't like the Calvinists, like those with the mark are the ones that like are saved, whether they know it or not now. Right, it's like they have the mark, and those without the mark, no matter what they do, like they're fucked, basically. That was my understanding.
Well, you might say that gets kind of interesting, because that gets like kind of in a complicated, getting into like end time stuff, like prophecy stuff about the end, like how many people are going to be saved, the remnant, and 144,000, and all of this different stuff. Like the way they would probably just cash it out is like. Either you're elect for salvation, or you are not.
Correct. Yeah, and that's what I mean by the mark, the elect.
Yeah. So there you go. Yeah, the elect.
So that's why. Look, this is what's interesting, because I remember speaking to these guys a while ago, and they consider themselves to be determinists, right? And basically everything. Yes. This is why John Lee, if I remember correctly, like never said that even the most heinous thing that you can say is necessarily bad, because it's what God willed, right? This is why when they were asking him, like, what if blah, blah, blah happened to like a kid or something? He wouldn't say it's bad. I don't know if he ever said it was good, but like, so I don't get why they even, like, if you're like, oh, this is my belief, blah, 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 like, why don't they say, you know what, I understand why you think that way, and then move on? Because it's not like you're just doing what you're supposed to do at that point, right? Like, you can't control it because you're just following the fucking pathway that you're supposed to be following.
Yeah, that's well said. So I think the thing is like, so I think they're maintaining somewhat of a contradiction, actually, because the issue is this, is that Scripture clearly says, and this is the thing that a lot of people try to charge Calvinists with, and they want to avoid this, because Scripture clearly says that God is not the author of evil, but they're divine determinists. And, oftentimes they'll tell you things like, down to the minute detail of the universe, God has determined it to be that way. And it's like, well, listen, like, if that's the case, then that means all of the thoughts and the intentions of the rapist come out of the heart of the person Well, why do they have the heart? Well, they got that nature or whatever from Adam. Why'd that happen? Well, God set it up that way. He set it up to where when Adam and Eve sinned, that this nature would pass down and people would just do evil, and some of that would be rape and murder, and all of that just comes out of this nature that God determined for them to have. And he even down to the thoughts and the desires, which they don't like to, that when you press them with this, because if God determines everything down to the minute detail, then the desires and the intentions would also be determined. Now they don't like that, but it is the case that's what they're affirming.
So they affirm that, but they say at the same time that God is not the author either.
Yep, that's right. That is the key. Like that's like the core, like one of the core disagreements.
That's so weird.
It is weird, and the thing is it just makes God, in my estimation, it's like such a horrific view, because it's basically saying that God is just he's doing all of these things. It's not just these things are occurring against his desire, like he's allowing them for a greater good, which is what I affirm. He's saying that God actually intended all of this to occur the way that it has, and it is somehow not making him the one that authored this evil. When the rapist rapes, he only rapes according to God's determination. Yeah.
It's even a little bit, it's a layer deeper than that, because you have to remember that God's decree is like prior to creation, obviously. So these concepts of like the concept of murder, the concept of rape, the concept of theft, it doesn't like originate in the mind of the sinful man. It originates in God's mind.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
This is what makes him like this divine Stephen King, which is so creepy about it, is that God decrees, his creative act is part of describing concepts. And he's decided that rape is going to be a concept. He decides that child sex is going to be a concept. And this is his authorship of it. So he is indeed like a divine Stephen King. Now the libertarian has an out and say, like, look, these perversions originate in the mind of the creature, the sinful creature, right? God foreknows them, but they don't originate in the mind of the creature. With the Calvinist, all of these concepts, and you can think of the most grotesque, like genocide or some type of sexual crime, whatever, these things originate in the creativity and the genius of God as a divine Stephen King. It's absolutely insane. And I think you're right to detest these people. It's disgusting. These people should be ashamed to say this stuff, but they're not.
Yeah, I don't think that, I mean, I agree with everything you said. I don't think there's any way to escape that. Like, it's done.
Yeah, and
let's say there's some like really gross. Let's say there's some like weirdo, but like you're a libertarian free agent, and you hold to libertarian freedom, and this guy wants to molest children on a mass scale, right? Now that idea originates in the mind of just a creature that's just a perverse, disgusting creature. But from the Calvinist view, I mean, this thought prior to creation, right, originates in the mind, in God's creative mind. Like, what kind of pornography is going on there in his mind where he's deciding what sins there will be? He can decide which sins are sins, right? It's gross. It's weird.
Yeah, I still believe that even people that hold like the free will position, I still think the concepts were created for the ability to even think of, for the creature to think of it, right? The creature could only be allowed to think of the concepts that were the potential and actual concepts that God willed into existence, right? So I like the Stephen King thing. That's pretty fucking good.
Hey, Andrew? I like to contrast it with the divine Bob Ross. Look, there's like a palette before God. There's endless amounts of hues and textures and all kinds of creative things that he has at his hands. I mean, he's doing arts and crafts here before creation. He's just exercising his imagination and deciding what's going to happen. But instead of, when we look at what he's created and he's authored, it's very different from, you have a Stephen